Ezra Levant, welcome to the Rubin Report.
Dave, great to see you. Thanks for having me on. I never thought I'd see it, but Canada and the U.S. are getting into fisticuffs. That is a very un-Canadian thing to happen.
Well,
now, Trudeau's gone.
Well, in this situation right now, we are Jake the Snake Roberts, and we are unleashing the Cobra on you people, a tied-up Macho Man Randy Savage who will have to sit there and
when
take our venom.
When you say you people, Canadians are not normally referred to as you people.
You know, it's funny. I was on Piers Morgan 2 days ago, or was it yesterday? And I said you people. I was talking to this girl who's a communist, Brianna something, and I said you people talking about communists. So of course all the people on Twitter were saying that I was racist, you know, whatever. Okay. Anywho, it's just another day and another false cry of racism. Ezra, it's good to see you. There's a lot going on that we've been covering as it relates to American-Canadian relations. So I want to start, I'm going to read a tweet from Donald Trump, have you respond to that, and then we'll just dive into absolutely everything. Are we going to have electricity in Canada? We'll find out. Or in America, we'll find out. But here's what Trump said yesterday. Based on Ontario, Canada, placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the United States, I have instructed my Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25% tariff to 50% on all steel and aluminum coming into the United States from Canada, one of the highest tariffing nations anywhere in the world. This will go into effect tomorrow morning, March 12th. Also, Canada must immediately drop their anti-American farmer tariff of 250 to 390% on various U.S. dairy products, which has long been considered outrageous. I will shortly be declaring a national emergency on electricity within the threatened area. This will allow the U.S. to quickly do what has to be done to alleviate this abusive threat from Canada. If other egregious long-time tariffs are likewise dropped by Canada, I will substantially increase on April 2nd the tariffs on cars coming into the U.S., which will essentially permanently shut down the automobile manufacturing business in Canada. Those cars can easily be made in the USA. Also, Canada pays very little for national security, relying on the United States for military protection. We are subsidizing Canada to the tune of more than $200 billion a year. Why? This cannot continue. The only thing that makes sense is for Canada to become our cherished 51st state. This would make all tariffs and everything else totally disappear. Canadians' taxes will be substantially reduced. They will be more secure, militarily and otherwise, than ever before. There would no longer be a northern border problem, and our greatest and most powerful nation in the world will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever, and Canada will be part of that. The artificial line of separation drawn many years ago will finally disappear, and we will have the safest and most beautiful nation anywhere in the world. And your brilliant anthem, O Canada, will continue to play, but now representing a great and powerful state within the greatest nation that the world has ever seen. Hello, my American friend. What do you have to say about all that?
Well, you know, there's a couple things going on. This all started in November when Trump tweeted, hey, Mexico, hey, Canada, by the time I'm inaugurated in January 20th, can you please help me with two crime problems? A lot of drugs coming in from your countries, a lot of illegals. And he added an or else. He said, or else we'll put on tariffs. But he really wanted to focus on those two things, which are such core campaign promises for Trump. Stop the fentanyl, stop the illegal migration. And in Canada, there was a moral hazard at play. Dave, the thing is, Justin Trudeau was on his way out. So he didn't have the same interests as Canada, certainly not the same interests as Trump. He would rather not get a deal and go out as Captain Canada fighting against Trump. So Trump thought, oh, these guys will say yes to strengthening the border, cracking down on fentanyl, cracking down on illegal immigration. That's so easy for them to do. It's in their interest anyways. That was just a flourish. It was an exclamation point, the tariff thing. But to Trudeau and Trudeau 2.0, who just took over yesterday, it was the opposite. It's in their personal and political interest to not get a deal with Trump. And as crazy as it sounds, the more punishing Trump's tariffs are on Canada, the better it suits them to say, we're the anti-Trump defenders.
All right, so you mentioned a few things here that I want to hit, Connor. I'm going to switch the order on you a little bit because Ezra went in a slight. I want to mention Mark Carney, who now is the Prime Minister of Canada. So he's the leader of the Liberal Party. Justin Trudeau has stepped down. And I want to show you this video that Pierre, I always pronounce his name wrong, Poilievre? Polyev. Jordan Peterson always says it's perfect. It's spelled perfectly so that everyone will mispronounce it. Pierre Polyev, who is the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, he put this video up of Mark Carney. Take a look.
I'm trying to explain a bit of how the economy works. One of the
Thank you
issues
so
which
much.
is well, it may help.
Our economy is stronger than the American economy in the medium term.
Our economy was weak before we got to the point of these threats from President Trump.
I'm trying to explain it.
Okay, but you acknowledge that the consumer would pay more at some point.
Well, the consumer is already paying more.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, the consumer is already paying more.
How the economy works.
What the big companies are producing, by and large, are not products that we are consuming. There's some element of that, but by and large, you know, a steel company, how much steel are you using these days, Todd?
I'm trying to explain a bit of how the economy works.
Biggest supplier of semiconductors. We supply almost all their semiconductors. That whole, you know, everybody in the White House is a tech bro except for Trump. They all need semiconductors. They all come from Canada. Maybe they won't.
How much steel do you use on a day-to-day basis, Ezra? That was a hell of an argument.
Well, as you can see, I'm a big user of forks and knives. So, but I'm an anomaly.
But this guy, I mean, look, we've been joking about Trudeau for years. He's done so many horrible things to your country. It's such I have so much love and affection for Canada and Canadians, and I love going up to Canada. And you know, I'm here in Florida where we have so many of your snowbirds that come down here, and I just love the Canadian spirit and sense of humor. But it seems to me you might have gotten even worse with this guy because he looks a little bit more sane, or his affect is a little bit more sane, but it seems like it's going to be the same results.
Yeah, that clip you played is more goofy and flip-floppy, and it's not as ominous. Let me tell you a few things about Mark Carney that actually scare me more than some of the goofy things he said about not using steel or Canada as a semiconductor, you know, superconductor giant. It's not. But
yeah,
those are almost in the way of like spelling potato wrong or something. But here's what scares me about Mark Carney. He's a board member of the World Economic Forum. That's his haunt. He was a senior guy there. He's a globalist with 3 passports. He left Canada decades ago to become the head of the central bank in England. And I don't know why he needs 3 passports. I don't think he's lived in Canada in more than 10 years. His wife continues to live and work in New York City. I think that's actually where he hangs out. He was installed as our prime minister. No Canadian has ever voted for him. He's never won elected office. The vote that put him in, children as young as 14 were allowed to vote in the Liberal primary. Foreign citizens were allowed to vote. So this guy was immediately catapulted to prime minister. He hasn't been vetted. We know next to nothing about him. He's made public statements about he's going to double down on woke. He's not going to follow America's path. He's close friends with China. He used to run a mini BlackRock called Brookfield Asset Management, where he would push ESG into any companies they manage. It was like Larry Fink of BlackRock, just a little bit smaller. So this guy is, I would say the closest comparison is Larry Fink of BlackRock. BlackRock Mini, called Brookfield, just acquired Canada. And I think they did it with the help of the Chinese government. I know that sounds crazy, but let me put my theory out there. 400,000 people registered to vote in the Liberal Party primary. That's a good number. 2/3 of them were disqualified. So Carney won based on 1/3 of the vote. We don't know who was disqualified. Was it a foreign operation? The CCP has tried to interfere in Canadian elections before, according to our own spy agency called CSIS. So we know so little about Carney. The vote process that catapulted it into the prime ministership was opaque. There's so many strange things about it, but there's one thing we know. He is smarter than Trudeau. He looks better than Trudeau. He's not as goofy as Trudeau. And it is in his interest to fight with America, but it's not in Canadians' interest. That's what I'm scared of, Dave.
Yeah.
I don't want Trump versus Carney to become like Trump versus Trudeau, and the collateral damage is the relationship between our two countries.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because everyone that nobody dislikes Canada. Nobody. And I don't think Donald Trump dislikes Canada. And we'll get to some of his other statements in a second. But this tension it feels like there's a certain set of people that do want this tension between our countries. To me, reordering some of our deals so that we're not, being hit so hard economically while we do so much for you makes full sense. What do you think is the way? What's the off ramp here?
Well, I mean, I have an idea that's sort of flipping the script here. I don't know, about a dozen years ago, I wrote a book defending Canada's oil sands. I'm not sure if you know about the oil sands. It's actually, they were only developed about 25 years ago. They're the third largest source of oil in the world behind Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. It's just north of the border of Montana. So you got all this oil there. And here's let me give you my plan to flip the script. A dozen years ago, the oil sands were under attack by lefties who were anti-oil and anti-carbon. And I said, well, guys, using your left-wing values, Canada's oil sands are the fair trade coffee of the world's oil industry. You care about peace. You care about environmentalism. You care about civil rights. All those things the oil sands have that Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Venezuela don't. That's the left-wing case for the oil sands. But now, Dave, I want to talk to you about the America First plan. Hear me out. Give me 90 seconds.
You got it.
You mentioned the $200 billion trade surplus. That's oil. Number one thing Canada sells to America is oil. It's not cars. It's not agriculture. It's oil. And that oil is displacing conflict oil from OPEC. Every barrel of oil you buy from the Canadian oil sands is one fewer barrels you're buying from the mullahs and the terrorists and Venezuela. And so right now, Alberta, Canada, the most pro-America province, is your number one source of oil exports. I spoke with the premier of Alberta. That's like the Texas of Canada, Danielle Smith. She is friendly to America. She went down to Trump's inauguration. And she says she wants to double the oil production and sell it to America. That Keystone XL pipeline could be revived. Biden killed it on day one. So here's the plan. Instead of tariffing the oil sands, which isn't going to work because you can't move, it's not like a factory that you can move to America. The oil sands are where they are. And so you put a tariff on that, that's just going to jack up prices for U.S. refineries. Here's the plan. I call it deal of the century. There's 170 billion barrels of oil just sitting there. That is enough to, if you double the production, that's enough to last for 50 years. It can totally get America off OPEC oil. And it's being developed by either American companies or Canadian companies with big U.S. shareholders. You don't need to patrol the Persian Gulf sea lanes to protect it. And you already have preferential access under the USMCA. So instead of pushing Canadian oil away, maybe into the hands of China, God forbid, pull it all in and say, we want to buy all of it, 50-year deal. That's $13 trillion. And by the way, Canada, all the money we're going to pay for this oil, we expect you to revitalize your military. We expect you to strengthen the border. So I say, look at it like a real estate tycoon. You're looking at Greenland, you're looking at Panama, you're looking at Gaza. That's chump change. Get the oil sands, lock it in for 50 years. That's my counter plan. That's my thesis, Dave.
And look, if we can't work that out and we don't want all of Canada because, you've got a lot of jihadis in Toronto, we might just take Calgary and Western Canada and we'll get the oil and the freedom-loving people, as you pointed out, who so many of them love America and freedom and all that stuff. I want to read this tweet from Charlie Kirk because it's an update on Trump's tweet that we just read a moment ago. Breaking 4 hours after President Trump escalated U.S. tariffs on Canada, Ontario has agreed to suspend its 25% tariff on electricity exports to the U.S. pending negotiations on a renewed USMCA trade deal. Translation, Trump's massive retaliation works. So it does seem, regardless of any of our positions on tariffs or anything else, it does seem that some of the pressure is getting this to work, right?
Well, Doug Ford, who threatened this electricity ban, he's a provincial premier. It's like a state governor.
Here, let me throw up a video of Doug Ford real quick, and then that way you can comment on that directly.
The president started this fight.
So if I'm hearing you, you're saying you're going to run attack ads basically against what he's doing in the States.
Well, I wouldn't call them attack ads. I'm going to call them information ads.
Okay.
And they're going to inform the great people of the United States, how it could be and having two great nations and how it might be if these tariffs continue to go through. As far as I'm concerned, it's unacceptable.
Okay, go ahead.
Doug Ford, because Trudeau just was swapped out for Mark Carney, there's sort of a political void in Canada right now. It would be like switching from Biden to Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And so Doug Ford, he has no constitutional power to make any deals with America. I think he's just taking the opportunity to be the big dog or something in Canada. But you can be the biggest dog in Canada, you're still a puppy when it comes to the United States. I want to get back to, the analogy I use is Batman and Robin. Look, Batman's always going to be bigger and stronger. Right now, Batman's giving Robin a noogie. And we don't like it, but I want to get back to us being allies and friends and partners. And the trouble is, people like Doug Ford, who we just saw there, people like Mark Carney, people like Justin Trudeau, they would actually prefer to fight for two reasons. Number one, Pierre Poilievre, the conservative candidate you mentioned, he's good. And on a head-to-head matchup, the Liberals are going to lose to him. However, if the Liberals can say, we're campaigning against Trump, only we can save you from Trump, they're going to do a lot better on the polls running against Trump. Second thing is, Dave, I got to say there is and has always been a bit of an anti-American streak in Canada. It goes back to Pierre Trudeau, who would pal around with Castro and, he went to the Soviet Union and communist China. So there's always been a bit of an anti-American streak up here, and the media party and the Liberal Party are tapping into it. So you've got these bad actors who have what's called a moral hazard. Trump is used to being in a real estate deal where he is willing to walk away and the other guy is desperate for a deal. Well, flip that around. Trump wants a deal, but the other guys don't. Mark Carney, the new Prime Minister of Canada, would rather not get a deal so he can victimize Canada and say, I'm here to rescue you, Canada. Only I can defend against the evil Trump.
Right. It's a good point. The pressures that they're under and the levers that they can use are interesting, because the lever they can use to gin up the most votes for the Liberal Party might be the most anti-Canadian thing possible. It'll keep them in power, but it'll keep Batman giving the noogie to Robin. You mentioned Greenland, so I want to show Trump yesterday was asked a bit about what we're doing with Canada, this kind of artificial border we have, and how Greenland could also be in the mix.
When you take away that artificial line that looks like it was done with a ruler, and that's what it was. Some guy sat there years ago and they said, rah. Well, when you take away that and you look at that beautiful formation of Canada and the United States, there is no place anywhere in the world that looks like that. It's Greenland,
so plus Greenland.
And then if you add Greenland, that's even. That's pretty.
It's going to look beautiful.
What do you think, my Canadian friend? I mean, it is a straight line that feels like it probably somebody was looking at a map and literally had a ruler and went like this. I mean, a lot of countries are like that. When you look at borders, they look kind of weird. But then you throw Greenland into the mix, something is brewing here.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you think about the Arctic, China's making a play up there, Russia's making a play, and I think Trump is cognizant of that. And he also knows that America has been footing the bill to defend all of Canada, basically throughout the Cold War. And Canada has had a free ride. It's true. All the things Trump's complaining about are legitimate. And Canadians should want to do them in our own interest, like beef up our military spending. We keep out U.S. dairy and poultry products, which means poor people in Canada have to pay a lot more for their food essentials. Rich people can pay double for milk, double for eggs. They don't care. But so we have all these foolish rules. Trump wants to sweep them away. Here's the thing. When you say to someone who's married, hey, come marry me, divorce the guy you're with and marry me, that's sort of a shocking thing. It's an indecent proposal, as the movie with Woody Harrelson is called. Now, some people who were thinking, well, I got to divorce my man anyway, so here's Trump coming to make me. That's when you say come join America, you're not just saying join America, you're saying leave what you have now. And any country is going to have people who are nationalists and patriots. And so it's going to hurt the feelings of people. It's going to say that's an outrageous thing to say. Now, some Canadians would want that deal because they think the current deal we have in Canada is sort of a raw deal. But here's my idea. How about take the best of us and leave the parts you probably don't want? You probably don't want an electoral college as big as California that's going to go Democrat most of the time. You probably don't want the French-English bilingualism, which is part of our country. We got that French quarter called Quebec. They're wonderful people. They like speaking French. Imagine that in your Congress. So what I would say to people who propose a merger, I'd say, how about use your USMCA that was negotiated by Trump, has special preference for America. What do you really want? You want Canada to be strong militarily, to hold its own. You want to crack down on the drugs and the illegal immigration. You want the oil, pull in the oil. Don't let China sniff around there. China would love to get that strategic asset. Don't let it fall into Chinese hands. Take the good stuff, give us enough dough for the oil that we can rearm, and some Canadians would love to join America, but it's just a patriotic and nationalistic thing. It would be like saying your state should merge with another state. A lot of people are affectionate for their state for historical or emotional reasons. Fair enough. Now, Trump, listen, he's a hell of a negotiator, and this is how he puts the other side off balance. It's just a little weird when it's Canada, your best buddy for the longest time, that's being wobbled a bit. That's all that's going on.
All I know is, as I keep saying, I'm down here in Florida where we get a lot of Canadian snowbirds, and an awful lot of them suddenly are staying for the summers too. It's one thing when they come for the winters, but when they start staying for the summers, you know something's wrong. Ezra, before I let you go, as I described at the top of the show, you are actually a journalist that I don't have to put air quotes around. You are out there in all of the hot spots everywhere, whether you're going to the WEF or you're fighting with the Hamas supporters in Toronto or whatever else it is. What legal fights are you in right now? Is there anything you really want that we can shine a light on for the moment?
We've got so many battles. I think we have 7 different lawsuits against the federal government. Almost all of them have to do with censorship or police arresting our journalists. We've been arrested 5 times in the last year just for asking questions. They're probably going to ban us from the election debate, so we'll have to go to court again. It's just what we do. I mean, I couldn't even list all of our fights. We're a fighting organization because if you believe in freedom, Canada is a battleground. My message to you, Dave, never give up your First Amendment. Look at Canada as a time machine of what you would be like in 5 years if you kept going down the road of Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom. If you want to know what Canada's like, think of Gavin Newsom. That's what Trudeau was like the last 9 years. So stay on guard. You can never get complacent in the fight for freedom, Dave. I know you know that.
You are doing great work as always, my friend. And I think that we may have Danielle Smith on the show in a couple of weeks. She's coming to Florida. We're working on that. So we'll continue that conversation. I thank you, my friend. I wish you good luck up there. And if you need any of our American meats or cheeses, I can probably get you something on the side. You know what I mean?
That sounds great. Thanks, Dave.
All right. See you, Ezra.